Welcome to the Lighthouse Financial Advisors Money Over 50 podcast with Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Lighthouse Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50 with Dallas and Michael. Today we are here to talk about what to do after you make a mistake.
Thanks, Michael.
Dallas.
This was my idea, my concept. Again, a bit of a thought in the shower this morning. Something that we see a lot is that people come in and see us for the first time, generally at 50 or 55, around there. And I think a lot of the time people are a bit sheepish about things that they have done in the past or mistakes they may have made in their financial life. And it happens sometimes before people come and see us, and sometimes it happens while they're a client of ours, that there might be something that they've done that in hindsight they probably shouldn't have done, or they wish that they hadn't done. So what we're talking about here is there's I think, to me, there's two distinct ways that people handle this. And it's the same. It's not just about your financial life, it's about everything in your life. But we're all human, we all make mistakes, we're all going to do the wrong thing at the wrong time at different occasions. So it's really how you react to that is going to be the biggest determinant of where you end up in the future. Because it's actually very rare that you make a mistake that you just cannot recover from. Unless you make a mistake that you are then dead afterwards. The beauty of it is, in our modern world, that whatever you do financially, you can normally recover from it in some way. But it really depends on how you react to that and what you do afterwards that is then going to determine.
Yes, look, it's a good point. And even the worst, what people would think is probably the worst financial mistake you could ever make, which is starting again for some people, and declaring bankruptcy. We've seen people that have done that in the past. That 3 years goes really, really quickly for them. Yeah. And it's not like they can't progress during that period of time. No. Like they can still, progress, and they've put themselves into they've wiped the slate clean. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I probably should have elaborated on that when I talk about in our modern capitalist system. There's no debtor's prison. There is no mistake that you can't make where you don't get to basically put your hand up and say, hey, if I have to start again, I start again. But
yes, and some of those people had, before going into bankruptcy, for example, had very few, their liabilities exceeded their assets by a long shot.
Yeah.
And one of the other really nice things about that is that for the vast majority of people, their superannuation is off limits.
Yes.
As well. So they don't even count that as an asset.
Yeah. So when we say people starting from scratch, you really start from scratch outside of superannuation. In most cases, your superannuation is protected. But
yes.
And so I guess that's a part of what we want to talk about is people who are starting from scratch and wiping the slate clean. But I think what's more common is to see everyone has made mistakes financially in their life. And so it might not be that it's something that's wiped you out, but it might just be, and you notice this a lot with couples, is that there'll be something that happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or even it's just happened. And it's sometimes a sticking point of that couple where it's hard for them to move past it. And it becomes a thing of every time they try and do something good financially or get set up for the future, their mind is dragged back to, well, if we didn't buy that property that we sold at loss, or if we hadn't done this with our super, if we hadn't done that, we'd be in a better position now. So I think the first thing, it's a bit like the old 12-step program, but the first thing to do when you make a mistake is to accept that you have made a mistake. And that's I think the big thing for me is you don't have to pretend that it didn't happen. You can just say, oh well, that's something that didn't work out like we thought it was. No one's going out there trying to get it wrong. So if you have made a mistake, the first thing to do is just to accept that is where it is at. I wish I didn't do that, however I have, and this is the position that I'm in now. And that's, I think, particularly for couples, the ability to just openly talk about that and to accept it and to start from the premise of, well, this is where we're at now, what do we do? But you've got to be able to accept that before you can actually move forward.
Yeah, look, I think it's a good point because you if you're accepting of that, look, other people become accepting of that.
Yeah.
Think of any other situation in your life where someone's actually said, maybe it's your child or a work colleague, have actually put their hand up and said, look, I made a mistake there. It's it's almost instant forgiveness.
It is.
I
always use the analogy of if you're driving a car, if you crash into someone or you bump into someone in the car park or something, if the first thing that you do is sort of say, oh geez, sorry mate, I wasn't thinking about where I was going or whatever. The other person just deflates. There is no anger. It just goes, okay, well, this is where we're at now, and what do we do from here? But if you go into it with well, you did this and that's why, it becomes then you then end up arguing about whether a mistake was made rather than how do we progress from here. And so I think that's especially financially, because you find that there is normally an action that needs to be taken off the back of that. So as much as we say, first step is to accept it and move on, it's in a lot of cases what we see is you can accept that you made a mistake and go, okay, well, how do we go about unwinding that? That's the next bit. Is to me, it's not about accepting it and going, well, now we just have to put up with that forever. It's to go, okay, well, now that we accept that we've made this mistake, what can we do to minimise the effects of that?
And look, you can't have that in reverse, can you? You can't actually deny that you've made a mistake. And kid yourself, and then say, okay, well, we're going to take a loss over here, but that's someone else's fault. Your mentality just doesn't allow you to do that. So I think the first step, if you do, admit that was a mistake. It hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And then you're able to then look to the future and say, okay, well, the best thing to do to get out of this is to do this now. Because you do see that. You do see, I've seen people...
Well, it's almost like the legal mindset of, I'm not admitting fault because then I'll be liable. So I'm not saying I've done something wrong, but what can we do if there was... And just go, yes, there is something wrong. There is something that needs to be done off the back.
Yes, I mean, classic example, you see people that might have bought too many properties, financed heavily, and I've seen them in the past where people have said, oh, these property prices are down and the economy's down and all that sort of stuff, and they are trapped then because there is no way that they're selling any of those properties and moving on, which is usually the best thing for them to do, whereas other people have said, in the same situation, someone else might say, hey, look, I made a mistake there. I actually borrowed too much when the times were good. I actually, went into this and overexposed myself, and now I just need to work out what the best thing to do going forward is to actually dig ourselves out of this hole. So it's a completely different mindset.
And I think there's something about that you see of it's almost like you have to be able to look at things that you've done without it being a part of your identity. And
absolutely.
We see this all the time where people go, I've done this. I can't unwind it because it's become. I've told people that this is the way to go, and that ability to change your mind. You have to be able to do that to go. Well, I thought this was the case. This is no longer the case. Not this is a part of my identity, and if I sell, then I'm admitting that there's almost like a sunk cost fallacy that comes into this, where you go, I've spent 5 years of my life. And in that example, you see it all the time with people overexposed to too many properties, too much debt. They spent 10 years of their life scratching to try and make these repayments and keep the house of cards from falling over. If they then go, well, we're just going to wipe it, sell everything and start again, not only is there a financial cost to that mistake they've made, but I think there's also something where they go, it's then cost me 10 years of my life. All the time and all the energy that I spent on that has been wiped. And that is the hard thing about that, I think, those mistakes. And when it comes from, when it isn't just a discussion around what are the dollars and cents, when it comes to, well, then it means that we've wasted 5 years. Or there's a weird thing I think people do where if you make it about dollars, people are fine with that. You know, you made a mistake, cost you money. But the minute it becomes you've wasted 5 years or you've wasted 10 years, that hurts too much. People really can't stomach that anymore. Okay?
It's interesting because those same people can watch their favourite football team, and it's the 70th minute and there's 10 minutes to go, and they've bombed 2 tries, and they've made mistakes for 70 minutes, but all the fans are and all the teams should be focused on the next 10 minutes. However, you're right, in when it's a little bit closer to home, people tend to look in the rearview mirror a little bit too much. And it is the sunk cost fallacy of a fallacy. I've paid all this money out over that period of time. What they're better off saying is, hey, we're in this right now. The decisions that we've made in the past need to be reviewed, really, and making the best decision for us for the next 5 or 10 years or whatever it is.
That's right.
To get us to where we need to be.
That's, I think, a good point. Is if you separate, like we said, there's really 2 parts of it. Step 1 is just to accept that that has happened, that there has been a mistake that has been made, and this is where things are now. And again, to use that analogy of the football team, I think that's once you've accepted that, you then all you can control is what do we do now, moving forward, and that's where an old football coach of mine, Dave Elliott, he used to say, "You never make a mistake on a mistake," and that was a big thing. Of if you drop the ball, you can. Everyone makes mistakes throughout a game of football, but if you drop the ball in the set of 6 and then you defend and then you get the ball back, if you make another mistake in that next set of 6, you're just really digging a hole for yourself. And that's to me the big thing. Is once you've accepted that there has been a mistake that's been made, the first thing that you should do is really focus on not making any other mistakes. Before you even really think about what to do and how to unwind what you've done or what to do moving forward, step 1 is do no harm. Don't make any other big decisions. Don't dig yourself any deeper. Just go, okay, this is where we've got to now. Step 1 is don't do anything that might harm us. So that's I think the big thing for me is which is almost hard, because our instinct, it's a bit like, gamblers notoriously will, when they start to get behind, will start to make worse and worse bets trying to get back to square. So you really have to go, okay, this is where we're at now. Step 1 is to not go backwards. Don't make any big bets. Don't try and get yourself back to square with some big play or to do anything crazy. Just get back in the game. Get back into the grind of getting ahead slowly.
So you would advocate certainly sitting down, looking at things logically. If you have made a mistake.
Given that you call me Dr. Spock a lot of the time, I'd say that's exactly what I'd advocate.
I guess in wrapping up. So if you are listening and it's something that is hits home with you because of you may have been in this situation, to sit down logically and have a look at sort of.
And I think this is to me the big thing about looking at this logically, and this is what I've done before many times with clients, is that what you really want to do is take the problem or take the situation and remove it from the person, and you have the same thing where if you end up having a discussion with someone about decisions that they've made, and someone feels as though they're being attacked and it's part of their identity, that it's not
which is a hard one for couples, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is a hard one for couples.
You've got to be able to remove that and go, here's the problem. Let's go and put this over here. Now we're all working on this together. And one of the big things that I find with that is once you sit down and start to talk about it logically and rationally, is that you can actually move the conversation from, and I think this is relevant in all aspects of our life, is that we talk a lot about, and here's another little bias for you, the fundamental attribution error. What happens here is that when we make a mistake, we know what our intention was. So we look at it through the lens of, well, that's not what I wanted to happen. But it actually doesn't matter what your intention was. It only matters what the outcome was. So I think that's a big thing for couples or for anyone, is that if you can look at it and go, well, this was the decision that I made. Here is what has happened. This is what it doesn't matter. It's not about blaming anyone. It's not about saying, well, you had the wrong. You were trying to do this, or you were trying. It doesn't matter what you were trying to do. It only matters what is the outcome there. So I think that's a big part of, like you're saying, sit down rationally and think of it really as take the problem, move it off to the side, and let's all talk about that together. And then those are, to me, the two big parts is, number one, don't make a mistake. Don't make a mistake on a mistake, and don't try and do anything outlandish to try and win back that money or to do anything like that.
Yeah.
And then the second bit is to look at it rationally as though someone else did that and go, well, how do we unwind it from here? What is the next step?
Good place to wrap up. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Lighthouse Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.